You are sitting in a perfectly safe room right now. No predators, no threats, no reason whatsoever to feel afraid. And yet, somewhere deep inside your skull, a small, almond-shaped cluster of neurons is scanning the room anyway, cataloging every shadow, every sound, every slight movement in your peripheral vision. Because it has been doing this for 4 million years, and it is not about to stop just because you live in an apartment. That feeling you sometimes get, the one where you glance over your shoulder for no reason, where your heart spikes when a door slams somewhere down the hall, where you lie awake at 2 a.m. with your chest tight and your mind chewing on something you cannot even name. That is not anxiety. That is not weakness. That is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is that it was designed for a world that no longer exists. The structure responsible for this is called the amygdala. It sits at the base of your brain, buried under all the newer, more rational tissue. And it is extraordinarily good at one thing: detecting danger and triggering a response before your conscious mind even knows what happened. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent decades mapping the amygdala and discovered something startling. The signal from your senses reaches the amygdala before it reaches your cortex, the thinking part of your brain. You feel afraid before you understand why. Your body reacts before you decide to react. Fear is not a thought. It is a reflex that evolved when thinking too slowly got you eaten. This made perfect sense for the vast majority of human history. For most of the time your ancestors existed on this planet, being hunted was not a metaphor. It was Tuesday. Early hominins were not the apex predators of their environment. They were mid-level prey animals sharing territory with large cats, hyenas, crocodiles, and a rotating cast of creatures that considered them a meal. Paleoanthropologist Robert Sussman spent years challenging the narrative that our ancestors were fearless hunters conquering the savannah. His research suggested something far more humbling: that for millions of years, we were hunted more than we hunted. Think about what that means for your nervous system. Every human alive today is descended from individuals who survived that world. Not just survived, they survived because they were fast to fear. Because when they heard a branch snap at night, they did not stop to weigh the probability that it was a threat. They ran, or they froze, or they hid. And the ones who paused to think it through? They did not always pass their genes on. Natural selection does not reward calm. It rewards survival. And survival, for most of human history, meant living in a permanent low-grade state of alert. That state is still running in you right now. Biologist Randolph Nesse, one of the founding thinkers in evolutionary medicine, developed something called the smoke detector principle to explain this. He asked a simple question: what is the cost of a false alarm versus the cost of missing a real threat? If your smoke detector goes off when there is no fire, you are annoyed. If it fails to go off when there is a fire, you die. So evolution built in a system that is wildly sensitive, one that fires constantly, that floods your body with stress hormones over a loud noise, or a strange face, or an unanswered text message. Because the cost of overreacting is almost always survivable, and the cost of underreacting might not be. Your brain is a smoke detector wired for the Pleistocene, and it cannot tell the difference between a lion and a deadline. The physical experience of this is something you know intimately, even if you have never thought about it this way. Your pupils dilate, your heart rate spikes, your blood rushes toward your large muscle groups and away from your digestive system. Your pain sensitivity drops. Your short-term memory narrows to a laser focus on the immediate threat. Your body is preparing to fight something, or sprint away from it. Every single one of those changes makes perfect sense if you are being chased across the savannah. None of them make any sense in a meeting where your boss is disappointed in your quarterly numbers. But your body does not know the difference. The amygdala does not read context. It reads patterns. And here is where it gets stranger. The patterns your amygdala learned to fear are ancient. Darkness, loud, sudden noises, fast-moving shapes at the edge of your vision, the feeling of being watched, heights, unfamiliar faces, enclosed spaces, open spaces where you cannot see what is approaching, silence that feels too complete. These are not random fears. They are a map of the actual dangers your ancestors navigated every day. Darkness was when the predators moved. Peripheral motion was often a predator circling. The feeling of being watched evolved because sometimes something really was watching you. Researcher Arne Oman at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm ran a series of experiments that illustrated this perfectly. He showed subjects images of spiders and snakes alongside images of flowers and mushrooms, all flashed so quickly that the subjects could not consciously identify them. Then he measured galvanic skin response, the tiny electrical changes in skin that indicate fear activation. People reacted to the snakes and spiders even when they could not consciously see them. Their amygdala had already clocked the threat and fired before conscious perception kicked in. The brain has a fast lane for fear, and it is stocked with dangers that were relevant long before your grandparents were born. This is why horror films work. They are not just scaring you with story, they are triggering pattern recognition so old it bypasses your judgment entirely. The slow figure standing at the end of a dark hallway, the sound that stops suddenly, the shape at the window. These are not clever screenplay inventions. They are reconstructions of the exact stimulus profile that your amygdala has been cataloging as lethal for millions of years. You are not scared because something convinced you to be scared. You are scared because something fluent in your oldest language whispered the right word. Now consider what this means for your daily life. Your brain scans your social environment the same way it once scanned the tree line. Social rejection, for your ancestors, was not just an emotional wound. It was potentially fatal. To be cast out of the group was to face the savannah alone. No fire, no protection, no food sharing. Evolutionary psychologist Mark Leary's research on what he calls the sociometer theory suggests that your self-esteem is not actually about how good you feel about yourself in some abstract sense. It is a real-time monitor of your social inclusion. When you feel embarrassed or rejected or left out of something, that sick, hollow drop you feel in your chest, your brain is triggering the same ancient alarm it would trigger if you were suddenly alone in the dark. You worry about what people think of you because once, being liked was the difference between surviving and not. You feel anxiety before you speak in public because your nervous system is reading a room full of staring faces as a predator assessment. You catastrophize at night because the dark was historically the most dangerous time, and your brain uses the quiet to process threats it did not have time to fully calculate during the day. You scroll endlessly. You check your phone reflexively. You feel a crawling restlessness when nothing is wrong, because a brain built for constant vigilance does not know what to do with actual peace. Rest is not the natural state of a hunted animal, and you carry that animal with you everywhere. None of this means you are broken. It means you are carrying hardware that was extraordinarily successful for an extraordinarily long time. The same system that makes you spiral about a difficult conversation also made your ancestors survive. The same sensitivity that makes you feel afraid in an empty parking garage at night once saved a human life in the dark every single time it fired correctly. You are not malfunctioning. You are running ancient software on modern conditions, and the mismatch is sometimes painful and sometimes absurd, but it is not a flaw. It is a feature that has not yet received its update. Joseph Ledoux, after a lifetime studying fear, made a simple and profound observation. The amygdala cannot unlearn. It can be inhibited by the cortex. The rational brain can learn to say, "This is safe, stand down." But the original fear signal never disappears. It just gets managed. The circuits that once fired when a predator appeared are still there, still wired, still ready. They are just being supervised now by a newer part of your brain that understands traffic jams and tax returns, and the fact that no one has died from an awkward silence. Tonight, when a sound startles you out of sleep, your amygdala will fire in milliseconds and flood your body with adrenaline before you are even fully awake. For a fraction of a second, you will feel the same thing a human felt 3 million years ago, waking to a sound in the dark outside the cave. And then your cortex will catch up, read the room, and tell you it was just the building settling. But for that fraction of a second, in the purest and most ancient sense, you were still being hunted.